Hello, hello, scrappy friends, and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. My name is Diane Gutierrez, and I usually come on live on Facebook at 11 a.m. every Wednesday, but this is a recorded video for today because I am on a travel day. And I haven't even perfected yet going live remotely outside of my home, and so I knew I of course, could not attempt if I was 30,000 feet in the air on an airplane. So maybe one day, but not today. Thank you for joining me and watching this video. I appreciate all of you, and I'm going to jump right in. So we are working in the Keeping It Simple series, where we're using the Creative Memories 52 scrapbooking project recipes. This has been such a fun series for me this year. I'm so glad I've been doing this. Been getting a lot of scrapbooking done. I went through this book and I picked out several different layouts that I feel are very simple to put together. Now I feel like most of them in the book are pretty simple, especially because we have the directions and the cutting guide right here for us. But today this one is not going to disappoint. It's super easy. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Of course, I'm going to make some slight changes to the cutting just because I want to bring in some additional papers than what they have here. But my overall design will be relatively the same today. In fact, I'm even bringing in the same border making cartridge that they used in the sample. I love this cartridge. It's called Sunshine Arches. So when I see it, I can't get it out of my mind to bring in something else. So it's gonna fit great with my theme for today. Let's take a look at the sample and talk about that first, and then we'll talk briefly about the cutting guide. So again, if you don't have this book, I do always put a PDF over on my blog. You can find that over here at DianeGutierrezScrapbooking.com. You can go to the blog and it should be one of the first posts there and print off a PDF. It won't be the same as this one, but it's the first time they used it. They used different paper, so you'll get to see a variety. But the layout and the instructions should all be the same. So here's our page layout for the day, and you'll see they use some pattern paper for the background. A lot of times I skip that, but today I think I'm going to do that. I think I want to bring in some boldness on my page, bring in some nice bold pattern paper for the background. Then basically it's some strips right here, and it's hard to see on this sample, but there's two strips right in here. It's this paper flipped over and using the reverse side, okay? And before I go too far, I have to apologize for the ink on my fingers. Believe it or not, I was just changing the ink in my photo printer and I accidentally touched the little pads underneath. So apologize for that. It would not come off. So I really have to scrub it, I guess. So we have our strips here and then a strip across the bottom down here. That strip just holds our punch out. I think that's very cute. And then up here gave us a nice big spot where we could put one of those large embellishments that we always have. And I'm not going to do that today. I have something else large that I want to get in here and equally as nice. But this is a great place if you have large embellishments like this. I would tag this page and write a note here that this is for large embellishments. On the PDF, I believe they put a photo here. Or no, I don't think they put a photo. I think they just left the piece of pattern paper that we can cut out for that. So, but you certainly could put a photo there because it's the same size. It's a 4.5-inch piece. If I didn't have a large embellishment, I would put a photo there and then maybe a title off to the side. And then it's just a couple other small areas of embellishing. They have the journaling over here. I am going to change that. And that's it. Pretty easy cutting as well. I'll show you that. So it's on this side. We have 3 pieces of designer paper, and I am going to follow this piece pretty closely. This one I'm going to change and make my mats. These are photo mats. They go right over here on these photos, so I'll bring in something else for that. The paper I have is just a little bit too loud. In fact, here it is right here. I didn't want to bring that in as a photo mat, so I'll be bringing in something a little more subtle. And then down here, this third piece is also designer paper or pattern paper. And again, these are all for photo mats. So sometimes I like to bring in cardstock instead of that, or maybe not mat at all. Today, I am going to bring in some pattern paper. I'm going to have a lot of pattern paper on this today, and very little, if any, I don't think I brought in any actually, cardstock. So this will be fun. Again, I've just brought in a subtle piece for that. So that's enough chit chat. Let me show you what I'm going to use. I have a little bit of a dilemma on this page. Again, this time my daughter gave me 17 photos for this park. Now this is not even a national park, it's a state park, but I'm going to go ahead and include some of the state parks that she goes to in this album. I think later on she'll be able to take them out and make a separate album if she wants to. I don't know, that will be her decision, but I'm just going to scrap it and include it in this album in chronological order. So she has 17 photos, and I had to decide what I was going to do. So here you'll see I have 6. I'm going to put 6 on today's layout. I have 11 more that I need to make a decision on. I'm coming up to a few pages in a row, or a few events in a row, that I'm going to have this dilemma. I have 18, 19 photos that she wants. Some of them I will have to make a 2-page layout, and then others I will be doing something a little bit different, like I'm going to show you today at the end how I'm going to tackle those last 11 photos and get them in this album. Okay, so the paper that I used, I went into my kit and I had the new Creative Memories Mountain Scene paper pack, which I felt was a good option for these photos. There's a lot of green and blue in here. I picked out these papers right here, and I'm actually going to incorporate part of the back side of this one as well. I love these. I thought that was a great option to kind of highlight some of these. It was working really well, but I didn't really find a blue in that set that I wanted, so I had to dive into my stash, and I found this beautiful piece of blue paper. I apologize because I do not remember where it came from. So if anybody knows, let me know. But I had 2 pieces in my stash. So when I finish a collection, I just put everything in rainbow order, and this was in my blue. Not even sure this was in a collection. Sometimes I buy the collection if it's all like colors or tone-on-tone paper, and then I just file it right into my color system without keeping it together. So I think that's what I probably did with this, why I can't remember which collection it was. Now we saw on paper number 1 that we're going to use some strips, and if you look here, it's having us do 2 big strips and then 2 little strips using the reverse side. So that's when I turned this over, I was like, oh, it's turquoise on the other side. I wasn't sure, and I'm still not sure. We'll have to see how this layout progresses and see if I like it, or I might have to bring in something else. But I saw this photo here and I thought, well, that's perfect because the water right here looks very turquoise and the water out here is really blue. So I thought, well, this might actually work. So I pulled that one out, and it was the best shade of blue that I wanted to use to pop these photos. Then I went into my stash again and I got this lovely brown piece, and then this one actually came, I believe, from the Pacific Scenes collection, and I thought I wanted to bring in some multiples of brown. So we're going to see how I can bring all this in together and get a 2-page layout done. Let's go ahead and start cutting. So the first one will be this blue paper where I want some of the background, and neither side is a directional piece, so I'm okay. The first cut I want to make is 3 inches, and then I want to do a 1-inch piece. Now we do have to trim these down to 11 inches, and if I would have done that first, then I would have a nice healthy 1-inch piece to use, but I didn't do that, so that's okay. It'll still work out. This one I need a 6-inch, and then this 2-inch will be flipped over. So let me go ahead and trim all these down to 11 inches. Now with the next piece of paper, I did want to pause and tell you about one issue I had with this piece. And I had to actually read the directions beforehand, so I circled it down there. And so what they want us to do here is, according to the directions, they want us to do the punch out first, and then we can trim up all the rest of the paper. So the only issue I have with that, because that is normally what we do, I wish they had kind of put these strips over here and then those photo mats over here, just swap them on the diagram right here, because then we could we're kind of reading it in this direction and we automatically would have punched, but I looked at it and saw it on the side over here and I thought, well, that's not gonna, if I cut and cut, then I'm not going to have enough in there to get my 2 punch outs. So it kind of attracted my attention right away. I wanted to make sure it caught your attention too. So we're going to punch first, and then we are going to trim off these. And like I said earlier, I'm not going to use the photo mats, so I'm okay. But I wanted to make sure if you're gonna use photo mats, you punch first. So for that, I'm bringing in this paper, and I want to use the back side of it for my punch out. So like I said, I'm using Sunshine Arches. This is my favorite border making cartridge. Do any of you have a favorite one? I believe Creative Memories is actually sold out of this. It hung around for a long time. In fact, I'm sure I have some of these on my personal website because I just love it so much. Okay, so I'm gonna punch out on this side, and then the reverse side will be for the strips. And then we want to trim this down to 1 inch. I think it's going to help bring in a lot of the different colors, the different browns and the different greens. So I really like that. Beforehand, I went ahead and punched out one just to save us a little bit of time. So we have 2 of those. And then with this piece, I'm going to continue cutting. And we need 1.25 inches. And we need 2 of those. And there we go. So now we're going to save this for another project. And then other than that, the rest is all for photo mats. And I think I'll lay out my photos first and see where we want to put some photo mats. And for that, I'll be bringing in some of those brown papers I showed you earlier. So let me clean this up, get my mats out, and we'll start to get some pages assembled. Okay, so here's the layout. And we need the 6x11 over here, the 2x11. This is going to come into the inseam right here and go about 1/2 inch down from the top, and the blue one will go right next to it. Then on the other page, we'll have the same thing with the turquoise paper coming in like that, and the blue right next to it. These pieces, they come down here. It's going to come up just a little bit above the paper here. So I'm going to put this one where this top corner is at 2 inches. I like that. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. There we go. So we have just a little bit exposed there. Then I'll bring in the border making cartridge punch outs, and it's gonna go right on top of the green. So something just a little different. I like the pattern paper. I don't always do pattern paper. In fact, when I'm doing a punch out, a lot of times I like to just do cardstock, but I liked this one a lot. Let's see if it pulls in some of the colors from my photos. So for my photos, I'm gonna follow a lot of what they have, and they have this one actually is right over here. Then they have a horizontal one right over here, and I love this picture. I love when she takes photos like this because it has a sign in here, so I don't have to try and get the name of the park in. It's already in there. And then both girls, this is a trip she took with my younger daughter, and so I thought that's super cute that they're both in there hugging up against that sign there. And then on this side, I'm going to put this one right down here. That's my younger daughter. And then I'm going to pick a 4x4 right here. Then they have another vertical photo right here. I was out of verticals, so you know I love to do this. Print 2 photos, print it on a 4x6 photo paper, and then I can get double my photos on here. So I'm going to do something like this and just put a little space between them. I think I'm actually going to switch those 2 around. There we go. Only because this one seemed a little bit heavier with all that green, and this one seemed so open and airy with all the air, so I put it up toward the top. So those are my photos. So let's talk about what I'm gonna do up here, because that's that spot they left for a large embellishment, but I don't have a large embellishment that I want to use for this page. But I do have this gorgeous journaling card. It's a laser cut, and so it's very detailed around the edge. It's from, I believe, Coastal Shores. It's two-sided, so I really get to decide if I want green or the beige. And I kind of like the beige. I think I have a lot of green going on, so I'm going to bring in beige. Probably do something like that and layer this right on top. Maybe I'll come back through and trim that down now that I'm looking at it, because I have a big chunk here that I could probably use on another layout where I don't have as much journaling. So this was one of their first trips that they took together, and this was kind of a pre-trip to a bigger trip that they took that summer. I believe this was 2019. Yeah, 2019. And then later that summer, they took a big road trip. That's why the next few pages I have a ton of photos. So I really am gonna have to figure out what to do about all the photos. So I think she's gonna have a lot of journaling, or she's probably gonna wanna say a lot about this. So I wanna give her a little bit bigger block right there to journal on. That's the basic page layout. Let's talk about photo mats and where am I gonna bring those and what color am I going to bring in. So if you look at our sample, they had quite a bit of different photo mats. So the two horizontals on the outside are both the same color, and then the two verticals on the inside are also the same color, and then the little 4-inch photo up here is another color because they used the reversed side. This is what I brought in. This one and then these two sides would work, and I'm not going to use the back side, although it does have the same color scheme that we're going with, but just not the style I'm looking for. So I think with this lighter brown, I'm going to bring in and probably matte the two photos, the two vertical photos. I'll probably do 6 1/4 inch matte, so 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 for both of these. Same with these. This is what makes this a Keeping It Simple page, is that I'm not really changing up too many of the photo sizes. I'm keeping this at, these are all 4x6 photos, and then this is a 4x4, so very easy photo cutting on this, and that makes it super easy. Then on this other paper, I think what I'll do is I'll cut some mats, again, 4.5 by 6.5 for these outside ones, and then maybe I'll flip it over and bring in a darker side. So that's gonna be a 4 1/4 inch square. So let me go cut those down and I'll be right back. Well, that was super easy. So let's go ahead and see if we like the choices that we made. I feel like I used some very subtle prints. It gives it a nice matte, but it doesn't take away from the photos at all. So I'm gonna jump away real quick. I'm going to get everything adhered down and then be back so that we can talk about some embellishing. Hold on. So I'm back, and again, that was super easy. This one is coming together so quickly. So what I decided here to do with the journaling mat, I went ahead and trimmed it down, and I was going to save that for another layout, but then I just tucked it right up here, and I kind of liked how that looks. Let me see if I can scoot that up just a tad. I thought that would give me the nice little embellishment cluster base, and then I didn't have to hang on to it. So I like it. I kind of overlapped the photo, kind of tucked the rest of the lines from the journaling mat underneath the photo. That's why it's tucked way in there. Okay, so let me bring in some embellishments. So I brought in several sticker sheets. I have some from Seas Please, I think, and what I really like is that little tree down there. And then, of course, some from the mountain scenes, and I believe Pacific scenes as well. And then just a few little things from my stash. Really trying to work on that stash as well as bringing in some other things too. Let's scoot it over here and work on this section right here. Now I do want to leave her plenty of room for journaling, so I want to be very careful. I have this tree from my stash. I put it on a little piece of wax paper to see what it's going to look like before I commit to it. And I think as long as I don't come too far over here, if I could hang it off to the side, and I kind of want a little bit of the trunk showing, do that, put that there. And then I have this little compass for from my stash, and I thought I want to try and get that into, I think it goes good anytime that they're traveling or hiking. I feel like a little compass is perfect, so I'm going to slide that in. I liked this one. It says a hiker's paradise, and I liked it because it brings in the browns that I had down here and up here on the photo mat. So hiker's paradise, and I'm kind of thinking I should put it about like right here, maybe off to the side. Again, I want to stay out of the journaling area as much as possible. So I got my 3 elements up there. Let me move on to over here. If you look at the project recipe, they did a little cluster here, I believe down here, and then up here. So I had this cute saying, the mountains are calling, I must go. And I thought these are like almost perfect colors for what I have. And I love it like right here next to where she's kind of contemplating and thinking and looking out at the ocean. Where's my tree? This tree right here. I liked that. In fact, let me scoot this over here so we can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to tuck it in right here. So this is like the great mix of ocean and trees at Big Sur State Park. So you can see here all the big pine trees here and then here. So I really feel like I could use this mountains are calling saying and have a little tree. I think I'm going to tuck it over here closer to the edge. One of these, oh yeah, here it is, Coastal Beauty. And I thought this is the perfect layout. I'm going to probably bring it in right up here. I'm just going to lay it lightly for now. There's so many on here that would be perfect. Breathtaking. But I thought this is nice. Coastal Beauty. And it kind of has that perfect picture with the different blues, the waterfall. Yep, I love that. And I feel like I just need one more little thing right up here. And this one has so many great ones too. I can't wait to use these. But I think I'm going to go for the pine cone. Kind of bring in a little bit of the pine cones from down here and maybe just bring it off to the side like that. I think I'm done. The last thing I have to do is I'm going to bring in some little tiny stickers and probably put 2019 right here or maybe even off on that tree right there. And that will be it. Super simple page today. I actually feel like I cheated, but I got some pages done and I actually like the turquoise here. Let me know what you think. I think it blends very nicely with the photos. Now, what am I going to do with the other 11 photos that I have to get on in and around this page layout? Well, I decided for this one, I am going to bring in multi-pocket page. Okay, these are made by Creative Memories. The staples line up in the album, so I just have to open the album and insert it in where it goes. And it'll go right here, and they can flip over and see the other photos from their trip. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay that right in there. And I think sometimes I'm mixed feelings on these pages because I feel like it takes away from looking at the page as a whole. But I think I'm okay with this layout that it's going to do that. So very fun photos. I know my daughter's going to be okay with them being in a pocket page. So I think that was a great way to kind of get those in. But I can't do that on every page. I don't want to do that on every page. So I'm going to have to decide what I'm going to do next when I come to a layout that has several pages that need to be done. So stay tuned and come back, see what I'm gonna do. Thank you for joining me today. I'll be back live next week on Facebook at 11 a.m. Come join me, chat with me. I'd appreciate that. And until then, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.